AITA for refusing to move out and still pay rent? So I've been with my girlfriend for a little over 4 years. A few months back, she sat me down and said she didn't think things were working between us. It wasn't some massive blowout, just two people slowly drifting. We agreed to give it another shot, put in more effort, and check in again in a few months to see if anything changed. Fast forward to last week. We had that check-in, and yeah, nothing changed. We both agreed to end things. It sucked, but it felt mature. At first. Then came the conversation about our apartment. We rent together. Her parents live nearby, but she doesn't want to move in with them. I don't have anyone close by to crash with. So my plan was simple. Move into the spare room for now. Start looking for my own place. And once I'm out, we can talk to the landlord about taking me off the lease. But that's when things got messy. She says, "I'd rather you move out soon. It'd be too weird living together now." Okay, fair. I get that. But then she hits me with, "You still have to pay your half of the rent since you're on the lease." Like, huh? I told her she can't have it both ways. She can't ask me to move out and still expect me to pay her half of the rent just because she can't afford the place on her own. Especially when she's the one who said she doesn't want to live with roommates. Because living with strangers would be too uncomfortable. But apparently, me living there, her ex, isn't uncomfortable. I told her flat out, I can't afford to pay rent on a new place and keep footing the bill for an apartment I'm not even allowed to live in. So I'm staying. I'll sleep in the spare room. I'll stay out of her way. But until I have somewhere else lined up, I'm not being bullied out just to make her life easier. And that's the core of this whole thing. She wants me to take on all the discomfort and all the cost so she can just carry on living in the apartment. No roommates, no sacrifice, no awkwardness. Just convenience. I told her, if you want the apartment to yourself, then take it. Find a roommate. Renegotiate the lease. Make it work. But I'm not subsidizing her lifestyle while I sleep on someone's couch or blow my savings on 2 rents. Now she's calling me unfair and selfish, acting like I'm punishing her. But what this really feels like is one of those subtle relationship double standards. When the breakup happens, he is expected to leave. He finds a new place. He figures it out, even if he's got nowhere to go. And she gets to keep the space, the comfort, the routine, because she needs it more. I'm tired of the unspoken rule that the guy is always supposed to sacrifice more, even when it's mutual, even when it's her who says she can't afford it. I didn't cause this situation. We both agreed the relationship was over. So no, I'm not moving out and still paying rent. I'll pay while I live there. I'll leave when I can. But she can't kick me out and hand me the bill on the way out the door. AITA?
Am I the a-hole for withdrawing support from my disabled father after years of caring for him alone? Full story plus update. Hi everyone. I never thought I'd be one to share my story here, but I've seen how much support and perspective others have received from this community, and honestly, I could really use that right now. I'm a 26-year-old man, and I have 2 younger sisters. One is 23, and the youngest just turned 18. We're all full siblings, same mother and father. Our childhood wasn't terrible, but things took a dramatic turn when I was 16. That's when my parents went through an extremely messy and emotionally taxing divorce. The split ended up dividing the family both physically and emotionally. My sisters chose to live with our mother. I stayed with our father. At the time, my dad had already been dealing with a variety of health issues. But shortly after the divorce, things got significantly worse. He became fully disabled and unable to work. He developed kidney failure, diabetes, heart problems, and a host of other chronic illnesses. Eventually, he was put on dialysis and placed on the kidney transplant list. From that point on, my life changed entirely. As a teenager, I suddenly became a caretaker. Over the last decade, I've helped my dad with everything, managing his medications, taking him to appointments, preparing meals, handling paperwork, cleaning the house, and just generally making sure he stayed alive and comfortable. This wasn't an occasional thing. This was daily. And it never stopped. During this entire time, my sisters were virtually absent from his life. They rarely visited. They didn't offer help. They didn't check in. He was pretty much dead to them unless they needed something. Now, let's fast forward a bit. A few years ago, I found out that my oldest sister had applied for and received carer's benefits by claiming she was providing care for my father. She had never done so much as fill a prescription for him. I was livid. When I confronted my dad about it, he didn't deny it. He said he just wanted to help her out financially, even if it meant bending the truth. That led to a huge fight. I told him I was disgusted he was enabling fraud, especially when I was the one doing the actual care work, without receiving a dime. I let it go eventually, but that betrayal stayed with me. I was the one making the sacrifices. I was the one picking up the pieces. And yet he chose to help the one person who hadn't lifted a finger. Fast forward again. Earlier this year, my dad's doctor called me. They informed me that he had been removed from the transplant list. His body had declined to the point that they no longer believed he would survive general anesthesia. One of the biggest contributing factors? His diet. Despite everything, he wasn't taking care of himself. The foods he ate were worsening his condition. After discussing it with my wife, we made the decision to move back in with him. We thought that if we could help improve his diet and routine, maybe he'd stabilize enough to get back on the transplant list. We had hope. We were determined. But then, something happened that shattered what little faith I had left. While organizing his most recent letters, I came across one addressed to him regarding a grant application. It was from a young carers organization. My youngest sister, the one who barely visits, had applied for the grant, claiming she was providing care for our father. The application stated she spent at least 16 hours a week with him. That's a lie. A complete fabrication. She doesn't even spend 16 minutes a week with him. He sees her maybe once a month, if that. And again, he had helped her with the paperwork. I confronted him. We fought again. I told him how much of a slap in the face it was. How he continued to enable my sisters to take credit for a life they had no part in. Meanwhile, me and my wife were the only ones supporting him physically, emotionally, and financially. And we weren't taking a cent. We were fed up. Exhausted. Emotionally and morally depleted. We were seriously considering walking away and letting his so-called carers deal with the reality of his situation. But then, he got worse. In January of 2023, my father passed away from complete kidney failure. It wasn't a surprise to me. His health had been failing rapidly, and the chances of a transplant were non-existent. I had seen him bounce back from the brink a few times before, but this time felt different. This time, I knew it was the end. The last meaningful moment we had together is one I'll carry forever. My wife and I were expecting our first child. We rushed to get an early scan just 7 weeks because I wanted him to see it while he was still coherent. I showed him the image. Just a blurry, tiny little shape that looked like a seahorse or a tadpole. But to him, it was everything. He cried. We had a short but powerful conversation about fatherhood. I told him not to tell anyone we were still early, and didn't want to jinx anything. He looked me in the eyes and said, "I'll take it to the grave." 3 days later, he passed away in his sleep. He kept his word. The rest of the family was shocked. They hadn't been treating his condition seriously. They thought he would bounce back again. But when I told them he had decided to end life support, they finally rushed to the hospital. It was too late. He was already unconscious. They stayed at his bedside, crying and grieving. But they hadn't shown that urgency when it could have mattered. He died surrounded by people who had barely made time for him when he was alive. My sisters didn't call him on his last birthday. No message. No visit. Nothing. We had rented a canal boat that day, something he had always wanted to do. He crashed it within 10 minutes, of course. But he smiled. It was the last time I saw him truly happy. Even after all the disappointments, he never stopped helping them. Financially, emotionally, whatever they needed he gave. They just rarely gave back. At the funeral, we were civil. But since then, we haven't spoken. They turned their share of his ashes into jewelry. I scattered mine at the far end of the canal, the place he never got to see. It felt right. Like I was helping him finish the journey he started. My son is 2 years old now. He looks just like him. I miss my dad every day. And while things between him and my sisters were never resolved, I know that in the end, he found peace. He met his grandson, even if only through a scan. He had one last dream come true. And he died knowing I was there, by his side. I'll never regret that. Thanks for reading.